Welcome back. You're tuned into Moving Forward, the program sponsored by Bay and Grandstand Advancement Association, designed to address the burning issues in our society with a view to moving the discussion from regurgitating the problem to, in fact, searching, finding, and implementing solutions to some of these problems. Just before the break, Freddie brought up the point of support or lack of support thereof. I want to ask Celi, when we talk about support, what comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, you know, when we talk about support, I think the first thing we need is actual support for the event. But then, you know, that begs the question as to why do we not get the support? You know, I'll tell you, when I looked at the event that night, I got a glimpse of, you know, past, present, future. You know, I think I even said to you, Freddie, you know, I got a glimpse of, you know, how you guys looked in your prime time, you know, almost.
Still in our prime time.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, almost felt a sense of jealousy that you couldn't be there to see it, you know, in that state during that era. And you know, you saw the little kids from Woodcock doing their thing, being creative. You know, Tingham Dam, Chris, you know, KB, you know, you got a glimpse of the talent and the culture in the Bahamas. And as I was shooting the thing, I was like, wow, this is supposed to be replicated, you know, the whole nightlife of the Bahamas. Yes. You know, you're supposed to be able to throw a stone and hit 10 acts like that going on in the Bahamas. And part of the reason we don't get the support is because we have not replicated and duplicated that. You understand what I'm saying? So I think we're missing the boat there, but we see the direction that we ought to go in, and it was a first-class show on every level. You got a little bit of old school, new school, future school, fusion, you understand? And I think that's the template that we ought to be putting out there for the world. You know, we don't need to be like nobody else, but that's it there. And if we don't put our resources behind supporting that on a national leadership level, you know, how do you expect the citizenry to do it? So they're only doing what we tell them to do. If we say, hey, Bahamianness is it, they're going to follow that because they feel it's cool and it's empowerment. But if we, as leaders, telegraph that it's not cool by not putting the resources there and it's half-hearted, then it's not going to happen. You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday. They have a group of young kids that's going to Broadway to perform Rake and Scrape. You understand? So the talent is there, but you need to see it where it's not the one-off.
Yes.
You understand? You need to see it that when you come into the Bahamas, you hear, you eat, sleep, drink what you saw on stage that night, the whole nightlife, the whole of the Bahamas. It's supposed to be no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So when the support starts on that national scale, you know, you're going to see it. It's like, wow, everybody's going to come for it. And, you know, even when you look at the connection from the historical tourism in terms of being town, that whole, you know, the culture of it, you know, because culture is who you are. No
That's
culture,
right.
no country.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are in discussions with the Ministry of Tourism. And we have been for the last 10 years or so.
But I think that's the challenge, Rev. You know, you're in discussions with them. They ought to be in discussions with you.
That's right.
You know what I mean? The leadership is supposed to be able to see, look here, that's it right there. You know, you're supposed to say, that's where we're supposed to go. And anybody that has anything to bring to the table, the leadership is supposed to be recruiting you. Hey, how can we do that? How can we do this? You know, I mean, the mere fact that, you know, you're holding a fundraiser for the refurbishment of the co-founder of Bean Town and the home and everything is right there. That's
Isn't
what
that ironical, though?
people, you know, people when they travel, that's what they eat up. People want to go to Israel to see where Jesus is from, the pyramids. People want to, who are you? That's what people want to know. Who are you? Tell me about who you are. Your culture is supposed to define it for me. You know, you get sand, sun, and sea basically anywhere, but who are you? What makes you different from him? That's the X factor. That's what I want to know. And until we start duplicating that and replicating it, the people aren't going to come off the ships the way they should.
Well, you know, Celi is speaking like a true storyteller. He wants to ask the question, where did you come from? Who are you? And CB, part of our problem in this country, and you would hear me say this often, we have failed miserably to teach ourselves about ourselves. We always look to someone to validate us, and that's what I hear Celi saying. If you look back at the era that we tried to replicate last Saturday night, we're looking back at the era of the cat and Phil, which Raphael and I know best. We're looking at the era of the Silver Slipper, the Zanzibar. Now, why were those nightclubs that I've mentioned, and there were 40 of them, Celi?
So you had a culture of it.
Yes,
See,
man.
that's my point.
There
You had
was
a culture of
but
it.
let me see if I could help you and also the country to understand. You see, during that era, you're talking about the 40s, 50s, and 60s, black people were not allowed to go into certain areas. So what happened? We had to then stay within our confines. What does that mean? That did not only mean that we couldn't go into their people's place, them people didn't want to come over to us either. So what did we have to do? We had to survive among ourselves, supporting ourselves. So I went to your grocery store, and I went to CB's clothing store, and I went to him as a tailor, and I went to the nightclub because I couldn't go into them people's nightclub. And guess what? We had the best nightclubs. So what happened? When the tourists heard about Nat King Cole is at the Cat and Phil, what did they do? They came over the hill. So Freddie Munnings, not only did he support the locals, he also took some of that revenue coming over the hill to the Cat and Phil to experience the artists that they could not get in those places where we were not allowed to go.
So what you're saying is you have to tell the story?
You got to tell the story. And we also not only tell the story, Celi, we got to begin to believe the story and know that we have the power to do what it is and that we should not be looking for handouts. We're not supposed to be asking. And this is the young brothers telling us now, Sibi, we need to be demanding that we preserve ourselves. We need to have enough pride, Sibi, so that we can say, this is the first black church in the country. And it was done by a black slave, runaway freedman who came here, who they tried to enslave and sent, but he tied himself to the Underground Railroad and he created an institution. We need to tell the story about James Weldon Johnson and how he is one of the most prolific black African Americans and Bahamians. We need to tell the stories about all of our great people like Pompey. You being the storyteller, we need to tell the story about Reverend Dr. Morse Clifton.
Yes.
We need to tell these stories so that your son and your daughter would understand that they're not supposed to be looking for handouts. They are supposed to be making demands because it was upon our backs that the country has grown.
I think you're talking to the right person.
I talk. We need to tell the truth.
Whenever Freddie talks about our history, you notice he goes back to Clifton.
Absolutely.
Because Freddie felt the pain of the fight for Clifton.
Yes,
Freddie is familiar with the story. And Freddie has been saying for a long time now, we have to tell the story. A part of the problem, of course, and we don't want to always be complaining about a lack of resources, but truth be told, that's what it's going to take. Because you need to assemble people who are able to tell the story accurately and in a way that would be well received by the public.
And don't sugarcoat it.
No.
Tell the truth. See,
yes.
we need to tell the truth, Celi, that Christopher Columbus can't discover me if I was here and save this fool.
You weren't lost.
Because he was drunk, lost, and sick. Huh?
Absolutely.
When they came upon Clifton, that's the only site that we know in this part of the region where there were three distinct civilizations of people. The Amerindians, who we call the Lucayans and the Taino Indians, the Loyalists, and the Africans on that site. It's a historic site.
But you know, that's why...
dating back thousands of years.
That's why we are so involved today in the fight to preserve Clifton. It was 15 years ago.
Yes.
That we started the fight.
And we should not relinquish the fight.
And we should not relinquish the fight.
I'm going to challenge you now, Reverend Dr. C.B. Morse. You led that fight.
Yes, but...
we cannot let it go.
No, we will not let it go.
We will not let it go.
We are in the midst of the fight right now today because the sea park that we had lobbied for very strongly back there and that we were given to understand would be created, now nothing is being said about it.
Nothing.
And the truth be told, even if the sea park were created, the sustainability of the sea park is questionable because of a lot of the degradation that's going on in the area.
You see, because I am a student of truth, I try to be CB, I have to say something that may sound a little controversial. You would remember that when they started this whole redevelopment of that area beyond Clifton, you and I went out there and we spoke with those new developers. Those things have been done. They've desecrated some of those sacred spaces in an area now where that whole new development is moving away from Clifton. And we told them then that they ought not do it.
But you know,
they are now finger canals, the same thing we were fighting. It was just by a different group of people.
Yeah, yes.
And some of those who were with us on the Clifton fight, they got bought into the other side, and now you don't hear nothing from them because they're benefiting. Huh? See, we got to be consistent if we're going to be serious. And I need for Celi to document the story, because you see, CB, unless we tell the truth, and you know, the Right Honorable Prime Minister always quotes an African proverb, until the lion writes the story, the hunter will always be the victor. Well, here's the lion. You are the lion. We were there. We cannot allow them to change the truth, because those who were in power then were the ones who were selling us out to the 600 residents. As a matter of fact, the then Minister of State was the one purporting and making the sales pitch. We sat in the meeting at St. Paul's Church.
If I may interject, but even the ones who are in place now are selling us out. Well, let me make my point, because look at what Reverend Moss and the coalition has to go through to get this place saved. You know, we are talking about VAT and new revenue streams of income, yada yada. And that whole Clifton area is a gold mine out there. You know, we go there and we do the boat tours out there. And you know, you look at this place, families should be out there, kayaking and fishing and all of these things. You know, you talk about historical tourism, new revenue sources. You know, the other night with the three young men that came up, you know, the white Caucasian guys, and it blew me away, the connection. You know, we're not even marketing the Clifton heritage for historical tourism. We assume that only black people have a connection to that, but how many other white persons with that 1/16 of black blood have a connection to that? You know, we're not marketing it from that perspective to pull it out there from a
storyteller, man.
He's a storyteller.
See how passionate he gets?
I understand the money too. You know, the money part of it is that, you know, the Africanness of it and the white persons who have a connection. So the whole world, we're supposed to be shifting our tourism module now to marketing from that perspective, because we have a couple of things that people don't have. We have the Clifton heritage, and then we get that Junkanoo that we could tie into the dance of the Africans, that you could make the connection that, you know, we're missing it because we have leaders that don't see it, and they don't understand that, hey, you're looking for someone else to give you something, but God has already blessed you with it. You just have to duplicate it and replicate it, and they totally missing it.
See, now he touched on another subject. He talked about Junkanoo. Well, let's look at Junkanoo. Junkanoo is that expression that's found throughout the diaspora, but it's only in the Bahamas, as you know, Celi, that we have elevated it to a national cultural expression. Now, why is that? CB, you would know, because of our history, our research at Clifton, that many of the Africans who came here were freed Africans, because after 1807, when the British Navy commandeered these ships who were traversing the areas with their cargo, they released them in their colonies. Many of them were released in the Bahamas. And we understand that was areas like Gambier and Baintown and Adelaide and Fox Hill, where these freed Africans were released, Celi. So what does that mean? Even though they were of different groups of persons, different nations in Africa, they had one common instrument. And what was that instrument? The drumbeat. That is why, Celi, the drumbeat of the Junkanoo is so powerful.
But that's my point, Freddie.
No, I'm giving.
No, I
I'm
know.
agreeing with you.
Yeah, I know you are.
I'm not debating you now.
But what I'm saying is
I'm
we have
agreeing with
something
you.
that's so unique.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
whole Clifton heritage that we can market from
couldn't
that
agree with you. I
historical
couldn't agree with you more.
perspective. You
Yeah.
tie it into the Clifton Sea Park, so a
Absolutely.
person can just go there for a whole day and just enjoy
that
it.
becomes
And
our
then you
Disney
connect,
World,
jump
eh?
into
That
that,
becomes
and it's
our
like
Disney World.
nobody else have it in the world.
But
Nobody
you know,
else.
Celi made a point
Yes.
that we just pretty much glossed over, but it was a profound point.
Mm.
Celi said, in response to what you said, that both administrations, both F&M and PLP administrations, showed no support.
Now I want to support his point that it's the people that have to drive it.
And we're gonna pick that up right
It's
after
the
this
people
break.
that have to
right
drive it.
after this break.